We're going to cover 5 ways to make your synth sound wider. The first 2 ways are going to be really simple. The third way is going to be dangerous and could mess up your entire mix. And the last way is my favorite. These are for you producers that are experimental and want to push the boundaries with sound design. Way number 1, Unison. If you add this to a saw, it's going to make it sound a bit detuned. And if you add it to a sine, it's going to sound very dreamy. If the only reason you're adding Unison is to get a bit of width, I like to turn the detune amount down. This gives you a lot more precise control over how much Unison you're adding. You can either adjust the width on the advanced page, or you can adjust the width at the bottom with the spread. Method number 2, when I'm making synth sounds wider, this is the technique that I use most of the time, and this is the technique that you're gonna hear on a lot of songs because it just works almost every time. Add a chorus or some sort of modulation plugin. And that might sound like the most simple tip, but there's a range of chorus plugins, and every chorus plugin sounds different. There's a stock chorus in the synth, doesn't sound that good. There's a free plugin called Tau Chorus, which emulates the Juno chorus. And there's also some paid plugins you can get. My favorites are Microshift and the Moog Cluster Flux. Method number 3, this one is dangerous, and if you're not careful, it will completely ruin the mix. You add a very short delay. So, it might sound like you've made your synth wider, but we've also cancelled out a lot of the frequencies. Let's listen to mono to hear what we've done. Each delay time is going to cancel out a different set of frequencies. So when I'm using this technique, I usually dial it in the mono to find which one works the best. Most of the time I'm not going to use this technique. So for next 2 methods, I'm going to show you the safest way to make your synth wider. Method number 4, pan the dry signal to the left and pan an effect on the right. The most common way to use this technique is to put a reverb on the other side, but we're not going to limit ourselves to just using reverbs. There's a ton more effects in the software, so let's try some other stuff. For this technique, I recommend trying out a range of different plugins. Literally go through your whole plugin folder and see what you can do to create difference between the left track and the right track. You can even run the right track through guitar pedals or stack multiple effects in your software to create a unique vibe. Method number 5, since you've stayed to the end of the video, I'm going to give you the best technique for making your synths wider. Not many people use this, but when you do, you can take your synth sounds to a whole new level. Instead of using our synth on one track, that's a bit boring. We're going to split it onto multiple tracks for each note of our chord. So if you've got a 3-note chord, we're going to split this into 3 tracks. If you've got a 4-note chord, we're going to split this into 4 tracks. Step number 2, each voice of the chord, we're going to pan it. Usually I pan the higher frequencies wider and the lower frequencies narrower, but depending on how you use it in your track, that doesn't really matter. Just make sure every voice is panned differently. The perfect example of this technique is Dawn Chorus, which we have a full breakdown of how to make that sound. Subscribe to learn more about sound design.